Story 1. Vanished. I kept glancing at my phone, hoping it would buzz with a message from Ryan. Our group project deadline was looming, and Ryan, our group's quiet yet brilliant mind, had vanished without a trace. No texts, no calls, no sign of activity in our class group messages. We were all feeling the heat of the upcoming presentation, and without Ryan's contribution, our project was floundering. I volunteered to check on him, thinking he might be overwhelmed or got sick. Taking a deep breath, I convinced myself to head to his apartment, assuring the others I would update them soon. Walking towards his complex, I tried not to think about how strange it was that someone as reliable as Ryan could disappear like this. His building loomed ahead, its aged brick facade and dimly lit windows adding a foreboding touch to my already growing anxiety. The evening air was thick and silent, the only sound my footsteps echoing against the pavement. As I reached Ryan's door, I noticed it was slightly ajar, a crack just wide enough to chill my bones. I hesitated, knocking softly, expecting him to emerge with some feeble excuse for his absence. Peeking inside, the darkness enveloped me. All the blinds were drawn tight, shrouding the room in an oppressive gloom. My stomach twisted as my eyes adjusted, revealing a space that spoke of sudden abandonment. An untouched plate of food sat on the counter, its smell wafting through the air. Everything seemed hastily left, as if Ryan had intended to return and then never did. My heart thumped wildly at the eerie signs, and I called out his name, my voice trembling against the silence. But there was no response. I ventured further in, stepping lightly over strewn papers that seemed to have been left in disarray. On a closer look, I realized these weren't just any notes. They were filled with sprawling diagrams and frantic writing that was impossible to ignore. A crude sketch of our campus caught my eye. Ominous X's marked at various locations, each accompanied by cryptic timestamps. By now, every fiber of my being was screaming to turn back, but I couldn't help but delve deeper into the bizarre mystery of Ryan's disappearance. On a table lay a sheet filled with the phrase, "Don't trust them," repeatedly scrawled in erratic handwriting. It was as if his mind had unraveled onto the pages before me. Disturbing thoughts about who them referred to invaded my mind, filling me with a growing sense of unease. My hands shook as I turned to leave, but something held me back. I noticed the closet door slightly ajar, half obscured by its own shadow within the darkened room. Curiosity mingled with dread as I pulled the door wider. Inside, clothes lay discarded like someone had rifled through them in distress. But what truly stole my breath was the message etched into the wood, deeply carved as if with a swift and desperate hand. "They know I figured it out." The words gutted me with their raw panic, leaving no room for doubt about the terror Ryan must have felt. Reeling from the revelation, I stumbled backward, urging my legs to move, flee, escape the suffocating fear that clung to the air. I dashed out, heart pounding with every step that took me further from Ryan's enigma. Sharing the grim findings with the group, we were left staring at our phones, a silent agreement among us not to dive into speculation that could only spiral into paranoia. The story soon took a stranger turn when we received official word from the university. Ryan had withdrawn due to mental health issues and returned to his family. The gravity of his struggle hit us hard, and an odd relief mixed with guilt set in, wondering if we missed the signs. The university advised against contacting Ryan or his family, an authoritative final note that left us to tie up what fragments of our project we could on our own, unfinished, unsolved. And with Ryan's haunting words echoing still, our everyday reality grew tinged with the surreal. Each shadow cast felt slightly more malevolent, each glance from a fellow student potentially more sinister. Even as we carried on, the mystery of Ryan's final weeks lingered like a cloud over our heads. A tale whispered, yet never wholly spoken aloud. Story 2. The Fraternity House. When we first got the idea to throw a party in the abandoned fraternity house, it seemed like genius. We needed a place where no one would think to look for us, and the house, with its darkened windows and overgrown lawn, fit the bill perfectly. It had been sitting empty on the edge of the campus for years after a scandal had shut operations down. From the outside, it appeared untouched, a ghost of college heydays, reeking of secrets and lost memories. It didn't take long for us to find a loose basement window, our secret point of entry buzzing with potential adventure and mischief. We didn't need much to set up. A few drinks, a couple of portable speakers loudly competing against the hollow silence of the house's old woodwork, and some battery-powered flashlights sufficed as our only source of light. As we ventured further into the house, I couldn't shake the feeling of isolation echoing in the shadows. The walls seemed to whisper surrender to the bleakness, an ambiance befitting our offbeat gathering. Far from being creeped out, we relished the opportunity to claim this forgotten corner of the past, a place where we could be unbothered by curfews or prying eyes. As we made our way through the ground floor, we began to notice strange signs. The most striking was a collection of empty food containers lining the dusty countertops of what once might have been a spacious and lively common area. The containers bore expiration dates from recent months, a jarring clue against the dust-blanketed backdrop. Nearby, an extinguished candle lay in a pool of its own wax, burnt out to the end, somehow feeling as if the faint scent of melted tallow still clung to the air. Hidden behind a couch, too intentionally placed for comfort, was an old sleeping bag, flattened from use rather than rolled or abandoned, telling tales of someone who considered this decayed lot home. Our sense of adventure muted to wary intrigue as we moved. Near the fireplace, Annie's flashlight beam quivered, catching something in the dust. She crouched down, her voice trailing into a barely audible gasp. There, etched into the grayish film on the floor, were fresh impressions, not made by sneakers or boots like ours, but by bare feet. A shiver infiltrated the room, cooling our excitement. It was a tangible testament that we were not as alone as we believed. Each print an unsettled declaration of an unseen presence. Determined to uncover more, Alex decided to explore the upper floors while the rest of us hesitated, grounding ourselves in known territory. Time stood still, charged with an uneasy silence, only broken by the distant creaks of Alex's footsteps overhead. Moments dragged on, stretched by the quiet clatter of our own worries until a sudden rush on the staircase shattered the air. Alex, disheveled and pallid, burst into our huddle, his eyes wide with an alarm that needed no explanation. He saw someone, he choked out. A figure shifting in the shadows at the end of a dimly lit hallway, and it wasn't him. Caught between disbelief and dread, we forced ourselves back upstairs as a group, determined not to succumb to fear's retreat. The stairs protested our ascent, the air itself a weight pressing down. testing our resolve. We found the hallway unoccupied, only the musty draft taunting us with cold kisses from a cracked window that gaped defiantly. It was as if the house itself breathed a sigh of relief at our invasive appraisal. The mystery now intangible, slipping further from our grasp, yet more vividly real under our skin. Descending to the main floor again did little to ease our tension. We found our makeshift camp profoundly unsettled. One of the flashlights we knew we had set on the rickety side table quietly missing. The pattern of assumptions shattered as we caught sight of the second-story window, neglected in our search, now ominously ajar. It was a beacon of absent authority, opening the domain to escape or entry. A sly reminder that claiming the space did not equate to controlling it. Urgency quietly overwhelmed us. No alliances made within those walls could stand against the unspoken promise of intruders and the unknown. In a somber refusal to let panic take the helm, we collected our things. Reality checked us into silence, binding the earlier frivolity in the stark ties of an unspoken agreement to leave while we could. The venture had lost its appeal, deflated by abysmal fear and unmistakable invasion. The solemn creak of the front door swallowed our hasty retreat, the house reclaiming its secrets as it released us back into the familiar chill of the night. In the days following, none of us spoke of what happened to campus security or each other. The risk of revealing our trespass prevented our recounting. Nonetheless, the incident lingered unspoken in shared looks and the altering path of previous choices. Avoidance became a solace. Passing by the still-standing house whispered unbidden memories. The shape of unseen eyes painted clear lines along our paths. It persisted in my thoughts. A guardian of nocturnal mysteries, a dormant beast lying in wait, its gaze deep and affecting, assuring me it knew and would always know. Story 3. The Lab Assistant. I took on a late-night assistant role at the university's research lab, mostly to pay the bills, and it seemed like a pretty straightforward gig. Catalog samples, clean up the day's mess, and maybe squeeze in a little study time. The building itself was nearly deserted after 7 p.m., which wasn't exactly comforting, but I'd gotten used to the eerie quiet. My footsteps seemed to echo down the endless halls, and sometimes the wind outside would rattle the old windows, playing tricks on my mind. But it was easy to shrug off as nothing, really. Just me and the empty halls, playing a silent game of who would flinch first. One night, about an hour into my shift, I was organizing the storage fridge when I noticed something that caught my eye. There were several unlabeled chemical compounds, odd mixtures that didn't fit into any recent experiments. At first, I thought maybe someone had forgotten to log them. But as I examined each one, the unease settled deeper into my bones. One container was tagged with an unusual code, not matching anything in the system. Intrigued, I cross-checked it and found it to be a compound commonly used as a sedative. My mind immediately began spinning scenarios. Why would this be here, unlogged, in a university lab? Over the next few shifts, I noticed even more such samples materializing, like they were breeding while unwatched. Most concerning was a compound I recognized for its use in short-term memory suppression. They were deadlier by the day. But the lab's tracking system showed nothing unusual. I was tempted to just ignore it, push it out of my mind like a bad dream. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly off. Maybe it was paranoia gnawing at me, creeping along the edges of my thoughts whenever I was alone in those sterile rooms. Compelled by a growing sense of dread, I quietly began documenting everything. I snapped photos, jotted down notes, all while trying not to alert anyone who might be involved. I felt like an amateur detective in one of those TV shows, clutching at evidence someone wanted buried. But then, just when I thought I was being careful, an undeniable chill swept over me one night. The lab's terminal bleeped, alerting me of a second login. My pulse quickened as fear tainted every nerve as I wondered whether I had missed someone entering. Moments later, the door in the back hallway creaked open, the sound reverberating in the silence, but when I went to verify, there was no one. The motion light stayed off, seemingly mocking me. I stood there in the darkened hall, heart pounding against my ribs, anxiety whispering that I was not alone, that the lab's shadows harbored unseen dangers. When I finally returned to my workstation, heart still thumping in my temples, I found my backpack unzipped, my notebook conspicuously missing. That small piece of evidence that could expose everything was gone, and dread settled like ice in my veins. Reporting what happened the next day to campus safety felt like pressing into a bruise, but I did it anyway. The response was unsettling. Their records showed only my access card used that night. No one else entered. The disbelief hung in the air like fog. But what unnerved me even more was when the lab staff couldn't find any traces of the unusual compounds I'd seen, not a hint of their existence on the logs. It was as though I'd imagined everything. A cruel mind game where reality and fiction twisted into one. In the following days, tension simmered beneath the surface, barely contained. I was removed from my position without explanation. They didn't even look me in the eye. Just a simple, cold notice. My mind raced, grasping at possibilities. Had my suspicions scared the wrong person? Or had I stumbled into something bigger than I could comprehend? The lack of answers was maddening. Each silent conversation with faculty felt loaded with secrets. The new normal felt like living in a thriller novel. A familiar campus now cloaked with secrets I could taste but not touch. Watching the lab building from afar, my thoughts twisted into questions, wondering who benefited from the conspiracy. I'd rehearse my story in whispers to the night sky, repeating every detail to etch it into my memory. Even now, something simmers underneath the surface of this tale. A dark, unsettling presence that might never fully come to light.